Hello, welcome to the Let's Talk Kids Health live show, episode 68. I'm Dr. Nerissa Bauer, your host. As you know, I'm a behavioral pediatrician and CEO of Let's Talk Kids Health. The concept of this show is to share information about behavioral health, parenting, and family wellness. Each week, I bring you topics and guests to help me advance this mission so that we can all talk together. Now, let us know that you're here by commenting, asking questions, putting a like in there at any time. And in a little bit, if you have questions, it can be asked of my guest. Now, the replay will be immediately available after the broadcast, and we're also going to be rebroadcasting each episode every Thursday night at 8 p.m. So as you're watching and you're like, shoot, I wish so-and-so would be watching right now. Well, never fear. They have ways to catch it later as a replay. So if you don't want to miss future episodes or maybe check out the past ones, please make sure to head over to my YouTube channel and subscribe, NerissaBauerMD. Follow my blog Facebook page, Let's Talk Kids Health, and join my free parenting discussion group. Now, today's topic is all about a fresh approach to parenting children with ADHD with my friend and repeat guest, Lafaya Mitchell. Lafaya Mitchell is a licensed marriage and family therapist. She has worked successfully with families of children, teens, adults with moderate to severe social, emotional, and or behavioral issues for over 20 years. Her experience and success led her to create the Lafaya Way, an advanced relational philosophy lighting the pathway to peaceful relationships with hypersensitive people. Lafaya, as always, I am so excited to bring you back on the show.
Yes, I'm excited to be here. Thank you for the invite.
Yes, yes. I mean, you are one of my favorite people who I can talk to for hours, but we have a little bit of time today to help and help our families who are watching right now, just kind of learn about this fresh approach to parenting kids with ADHD. So maybe I'll just turn it over to you first to kind of just do a very quick, like any introduction that you wish, and then we'll just kind of start talking.
Well, I think your introduction was great.
Thank you.
So I appreciate it very much. Thank you. There's a lot that both of us have been doing for the parent communities out there. So I'm just extremely excited to just sit and talk a little bit
Yes.
about and give parents a little bit more information.
Well, and here's one saying, looking forward to this discussion. So, yes.
Awesome.
Yeah. I mean, and if you guys have specific questions on, parenting kids with ADHD, please start dropping it in because otherwise we're just going to kind of have a kind of awesome, real conversation.
Yes.
Yeah. So okay, I'm going to start with this question because it came in my Teach Me ADHD community, and I thought I'd just kind of throw it out there to you. And as you know, Lafaya, you also come into that group, pretty regularly, which I love and the families love. But one of my new detective families did post, okay, we're learning all these awesome strategies, but in the moment, he never remembers them. And, I try to calmly suggest, remember when we learned this? Let's do this together. It just sort of escalates and he gets upset. I get upset. What do we do?
Oh man.
I know.
No, that's a really good
This is a
question.
common thing though.
Right, right. No, okay. So whenever you're trying something new,
Mhm.
especially with your child okay. So first, let me just introduce you guys to myself and to say that most of the time you're going to hear me use the word hypersensitive child anyway. Okay. And of course, children who are diagnosed with ADHD, they fall along that spectrum of kids who are hypersensitive. So when you're dealing with hypersensitive children, then you're dealing with a child who may have struggles or very likely has struggles with trying new things. Okay.
Mhm.
And so there's anxiety behind it. And when they're hypersensitive and there's anxiety behind it, then they get to a space and place where it becomes upsetting to them when they try. Okay. And so so I think that some of the ways to get around some of that escalation of upset, hey, remember we're trying this, this new thing with your child, maybe work on maybe validating their response to that, like letting them know, hey, I know it's really tough to try new things, but remember that, let's try at least one step in the new thing you learned, right?
Mhm.
So then that way it won't seem like something that's just so huge in their minds. And they can actually, just follow, even if it's like the smallest little step, maybe just one small little aspect of what it is they were asked to do.
Mhm. But here the key is what, like in the moment, because there are some kids who can kind of go from 0 to 60, right?
Oh yeah.
But what I heard you say is trying to validate that emotion first,
Yes.
right? Because that's going to, like, if we need to validate that, right? And acknowledge that, but then encourage them, like, to break down that step, because it can be overwhelming. It
Right.
can be overwhelming.
Right. Into bite-sized pieces. So that double kind of that double hitter,
Mhm.
that validation breakdown into bite-sized pieces can make it more manageable for your resistant kid.
Mhm.
Or
Mhm.
your seemingly resistant kid, because sometimes, well, I guess it's resistance, but it's not in the way that we tend to interpret it, which is almost like they refuse to do something, as opposed to there's something in the way. There's like a, kind of a block in the road.
Mhm. Like
So really,
overwhelm, or,
right,
those deeper emotions that could be
right.
triggered right now.
Overwhelmed, difficulties with trying something new, feeling, and quite honestly, not understanding their own feelings about it, because they'll feel like it's maybe irritation towards you, as opposed to understanding that feeling in them is more the anxiety of trying something new.
Mhm. Okay. I have a great question here, Lafaya, so I'm going to go ahead and post it.
Okay.
So I have two kids with ADHD, 12 and 7. So whoever sent this in, thank you. When one melts down, the other child feeds off of it. Oh, any tips to prevent this?
Oh my goodness. Okay.
I can kind of see,
so,
like, you're like,
so
oh, this is,
okay. So,
yep.
Dr. Nerissa, Dr. Bauer, that's one of my favorite
I
segments.
know,
So,
I know.
when we talk about feeding off of energy, I don't know if you got a chance to see any of our other talks, but there is this phenomenon called emotion soaking
Hmm.
that hypersensitive children do. Again, ADHDers, hypersensitive children do. It's the unintentional sponging of the feeling energies of those around them. Sometimes just bringing that particular aspect into their awareness can help, right? So then you create ways, once they understand that they tend towards strong emotion soaking, then you can also work with them on how to kind of create more of a shield against that. I try to, with kids, I try to create visuals, right? So how do you create that barrier, or that if they like Star Trek or whatever, kind of put up your force field or
Yes,
force shield,
yes.
whatever it's called, to try to protect yourself from other people's emotions. Or if it does zap you, right? Then recognizing when you feel the feeling, then almost helping them to identify it in certain ways. For me, I help them identify it as maybe an insertion of like negative energy, like something just kind of zapped you. Now you've been zapped with this negative energy and it tries to grow. And so, then what do you do to try to shrink, to get to a place where you shrink that and kind of get it up and out
Yeah.
of you,
Yeah.
right?
I'm,
And
I'm
so
like,
then,
right now I'm visualizing, like, Incredibles, and the daughter who does the force fields, like, I mean,
yes,
that's like a really tangible, concrete picture that we can teach kids to sort of, like, use their superpowers to kind of protect themselves this
yes.
way. Yeah.
Almost like a chills up kind of
Yeah.
thing, right? Where they can really, and then it's just like, oh, like almost you teach them to almost have a response to it, to where it's like, oh, okay, that really did just hit me. Okay, that means I need to, whatever their up and out coping thing is. For some kids, not for some kids, it's maybe journaling. They want to write down. For some kids, it's maybe art. For some kids, it's go for a run. For some kids, even if it could be like a punching bag or something that's going to cause them to do something physically,
Hmm.
right? And because even when you journal, you can journal big writing, whatever, but something where they're recognizing that they're working out that negative energy.
Yeah. So I'm going to just pose this question to the person who posted this question. I apologize, because it just says Facebook user on my end. But if you can clarify, like, what your other child does when they're feeding off of it. Like, sometimes some cry, sometimes some get more upset or worried, or, like, what does that look like? And that, I guess, then we can better address that too. Yeah. Okay. So can you, again, emotion soaking, can you just say that again, so that for people who are just tuning in, what does that
Right.
mean?
Right. Okay. Emotion soaking is the unintentional sponging of the feeling energies of those around you. And this happens first of all, this happens for every human being.
Mhm.
For example, if your spouse comes into the house angry or something, and you're perfectly fine before they get there, but they come in with that angry energy, you may feel it kind of hit you too, where now you're feeling some of that irritation, agitation, right?
Mm.
Because as human beings, we're all connected, so it happens in some, in some way for us all. But for our hypersensitive children, it happens to a much higher degree, where they're literally taking on the feelings of the other person, and it's expanding in them. And depending on how sensitive they are, it can expand. I always tell parents it's like 10, 100, 1000%, right?
Yeah.
And so, or 100 times, 10, 100, 1000. And the bigger the reaction, the more you can recognize that they're kind of a higher level emotion soaker.
Okay. And kids can be emotion soakers, parents can be emotion soakers. And what if you have two emotion soak like highly emotion soaker? Like what happens there? Like what does that typically look like if both parent and child are both high emotion soakers?
Okay, it looks like a nuclear explosion. I'm not gonna. Okay, so what it looks like is, they're bouncing off of each other. So there's a negative feeling going on for one, it kind of gets drawn in by the other, expands, and then it gets drawn in by the original person and expands, and you
Yes.
just continue to have this expansion, which just looks like escalation of negative, feeling energies. And
Yes.
so the best course of action, especially if you as the parent are an emotion soaker, is to learn how to take the breaks that you need to take from one another, to say, okay, I need a moment to kind of work this out, because I feel like I have a lot of negative. A lot of people, maybe whatever words you would use, right? How would you capture negative energy on the inside? Because that's how I do for the kids. I want to give them as much as possible, something they can visualize, so that it's tangible to them, right? Because
Yep.
if it's not tangible, then it just becomes them, right? As opposed to being grab a hold of it and I'm gonna get this up and out of me. This is just how I feel, right? And
Yeah.
for us as well. But so you need to learn how to take your own time out, your break, and say, hey, time out, headed in the wrong direction. Let me just go, whatever your calming thing is. Let me just go. And then you're teaching them the same skill, by the way. Let me go take a short walk so that I can come back and address this without, feeding you so much upset.
Okay. Yeah. And that's so important too. What you're saying there, you're giving parents permission to not necessarily have to address it in the moment because it can be really
Mhm.
difficult. Because, like, in the moment when you're all fired up and you're trying to like address something, you sort of sometimes we fall into that trap of like we're getting hotter and hotter under the collar and it's just not helping. It's actually making
It
things
actually hurts. It
yeah.
actually, a lot of parents feel like they feel pressure almost to deal with things in the moment. But
Mm,
when you're upset, it's very unproductive to try to deal with things in the moment. So it's
okay.
it's it's better to take a break, not just walk away or leave, or I'm not doing this or any of that, because that's also unhealthy.
Hmm.
Okay, because then the other person feels abandoned.
Hmm.
But to say, hey, let's take a little break so that we're not, so that we don't, feed off of each other in a negative way. I want to make sure we're bringing something positive to this.
Hmm.
Is a very different experience. Now, your hypersensitive kid may be a bit of a stinker,
Hmm.
and not want to try to accept that in the moment, but that's okay too, because that just means they're feeling the same pressure that you felt to need to address it right in that moment, right?
Hmm.
And so you're teaching them how to break from that, because it's
Yeah.
a very unhealthy way to interact.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes like when you put a dysregulated child or maybe even two together and then you're starting to feel it, like sometimes it's just better to kind of like pause or freeze and just like model like even
The
sitting
deep breath,
and taking
right?
taking a few seconds, right? And because then your kids, they're just kind of waiting to see what happens. And then if you're just kind of sitting there and you're quiet and still, they might be like, "What's happening?" You know? It might be enough of a weird thing that's so unusual that they're, like, stopping in the usual like, if you find yourself going in this cycle again and again, it might be weird enough to them that they're like, "Wait, what's happening?"
Right, right.
Right?
And I want to give like just an additional piece. So if they're 12 and 7, and then one
Mhm.
is one
Still
becomes very
here.
upset when the other becomes very upset,
Uh-huh.
it's very important to even help them to recognize that something just happened. So to
Mm.
kind of look at them, if they weren't upset before and now they're upset, right? Then you
Yes.
can say, hey, oh my goodness, what just happened right there? Because you were really good before, your brother or sister came in. Did you take in some of that negative energy? Did it like try to take you over? Okay, so maybe try, and you give them their different coping skills. Some kids is, calming music they do well with,
Mhm.
and some kids need to go scream into a pillow, and some kids need to, right, do some
Yeah.
jumping jacks or
Yeah.
something, but give them something that they can do so that they know that they're and be intentional about releasing that energy.
Yeah, but it's important though that you point out that even though we might have two, three different kids, they all have different coping styles. So it's kind of knowing what that is for each child and having a menu of things that they have, like go-tos that you know that they really like and is helps them regulate. So that way in the moment, if you need to, you can just remind them of that. Have a visual, right? Of that.
Oh, we have the comment, the
Yeah.
emotion tends to be yelling. Now, when you
Yes.
get yelling behavior,
Hmm.
actually the yelling behavior can, of course, become more it cause them to become more agitated.
Yeah.
And so as a parent too, when you hear yelling, right? Because now your fight or flight is starting to kick in a little bit because our bodies respond to our children's upset,
Hmm.
right? So when you have your child yelling, then as a modeling thing, you as a parent can stop and take that really deep breath up and out because you just had an insertion of some negative energy for sure as a
Hmm.
parent, and then because and they'll see it, and you address your child and you say, hey, oh my goodness, okay, you got upset so fast right there, okay, but when you yell, that only makes you more upset. So do you think you can try, and I know that's not your intention, right? This is like the power talk formula. When
Hmm.
it causes this uncomfortable thing for you, and I know that's not your intention. So can you go use one of your coping skills? And now, of course, as a parent, we're not saying go use one of your coping skills. It's like figure out what the coping skills are, so that in that moment you can give them a list, like Dr. Bauer said, a list of things to do.
Hmm.
And sometimes we best make that list
Yep.
by asking them, okay, when you're in that moment, of course, in a calmer moment, but when you're in that moment, you had a really hard time earlier today. When you're in that moment like that, what do you think would be helpful for you to get that negative energy up and out? Because
Yeah.
that's all it is. We don't want you to get into trouble just because you had an insertion of negative energy,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. And Cassandra, because I know you took the Teach Me ADHD course, remember we've got these visuals, right? So again, you can refer back to that with your kids and when everybody's calm and say, okay, you remember these strategies that we learned. Let's practice a couple of those again. And which ones do you feel like in the moment you think really serve you and can really help get you back to calm, right? And then have them practice that, and then that way you get to know what each of your children kind of like and gravitate towards. And then in the moment, you can again point them to that, have those visuals out. So then that way when they're just feeling, you can kind of trigger their thinking brain by like having that visual cue, but then along with what Lafaya said. Can you say that again? Because that script is so beautiful. You like
Oh,
take your deep breath,
the
right?
okay, so
Yep.
kind of the
Hmm.
the the empowerment formula.
Yes. Yes.
Okay,
Please.
so it's basically, when you kind of negative behavior, right?
When you
It
yell like
it
this. Hmm.
causes, yeah, okay, so we'll use it for that. It causes an undesirable response. So for them, it causes you to become even more upset than you already are. Okay. And I know that's not your intention, is all you always want to throw that in there because we want to make sure that they're understanding we're not trying to like blame or point fingers, right?
Hmm.
And or say that, we're just helping them out. And I know that's not your intention. So please, new behavior that's more desirable for you and me, which is go use one of your coping skills. Hey, when you have that negative energy insertion, try this.
Yes.
But remember, this advice is best served during the calmer moment. You don't really want to in the moment when a kid's already escalated. Then most of the time it's just like, whoa, almost like you're trying to find your own way to calm. So you're like, whoa, okay, what just happened there?
Yeah.
Okay, so did you need to did you need to step out for a minute? Did you need to coping skill? Did you need to go scream into a pillow really quickly because it seems like you got really upset, right?
And
So,
I like that. And again, Cassandra, she says, "Thank you. I'm nodding. The empowerment formula is great." But like, I don't know if you caught this, Lafaya, when she goes, "Whoa," she's taking a deep breath in to herself to like regulate herself.
mhm,
Right?
mhm, mhm,
She taught us this in the Teach Me ADHD community. Like you're modeling, but you're also doing it for yourself because you want to
mhm,
help make sure you're not getting dysregulated in the moment as
mhm.
well.
Very important,
Yeah.
because we have to they actually, it creates a safe space for our children when we learn, or because we have to, this has to be a practice because it's not natural, right? Biologically, we're made to have a strong and fast response to our children because that's the survival instinct from the beginning, from when they're infants and they need us to respond right away. But that reaction in our bodies, it doesn't stop just because they're no longer infants. So we have to be very aware of that fact, because our bodies will go into fight or flight, and our reaction to them will be filled with anxiety, which is the last thing that we want an escalating or escalated child to soak in more of. We have to give them a peace space to draw from, because the emotion soaks that as well.
Yeah. I mean, okay. Wow. That is just pure gold right there. I'm like hoping that people watching this or even on replay are like, oh my gosh, like that just makes total sense. And I'm going to go right now and practice this. So I mean, again, let's recap that because I think that's really important. And again, it ties into that question I started this episode with, like in the moment, like what happens, or, like, thank you, Cassandra, for your question about like the melting down and the two kids feeding off of each other. Right. So acknowledging that moment, but the way with which you respond, take your deep breath first and say, I, whenever, no, say that again. You're going to have to do that again.
Okay, it's the formula breaks down into a when you
When you do this yelling,
it causes
it
an
causes you,
undesirable
hmm
thing in you. So that's you to get more upset. Like
yeah,
you can't feel
yeah,
better
again,
like that, right? And I know that's not your intention. You're
yes,
just
got it.
upset. So please try your coping skill. Let's get this up
hmm
and out instead, like in a
Yes.
way that now, because the last thing you want is to feel bad and then feel worse because now you're feeling like you're being punished or you're in trouble or people don't
Yeah,
like
and
you or
that's not
want
your
you around,
intention. That's not your
right?
intention at all.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. But I guess the key here, and I think you drove this home last time when we did this discussion in the community, is it needs to be aligned with the child's like consequence to the child, not like whenever you yell, it makes me feel like, don't do
Right.
that as the right, because
No,
that
no.
just serves to make you more upset, right?
Well, see, now it's interesting because when I explain this, then parents are like, "Oh my goodness, I don't know why I never thought of it this way."
Yes.
But when you're dealing with a child that tends to be very self-absorbed or very much self-centered, and actually, I would venture to say most people are self-centered, by the way, self-focused. Okay, when you're
hmm
dealing with a child who's very self-focused, to try to compel them to make a change based on how you feel is the opposite of productive. So
Yeah.
you have to express to them in a way that tells how they feel or how they're going to feel worse engaging in that thing. Right?
hmm
That's the
Yeah.
key with the empowerment talk formula.
Yeah. And you're teaching them too. So you're acknowledging in the moment, you're modeling to them, but then you're also helping connect the dots for them.
You're
Like when
giving
you
them
do
the
this.
proper correction, a correction that has breakthrough with them, because now you have said something to them there's breakthrough when you tell a kid you don't want this, right? You
Mhm.
This is what's going to happen and you don't want this. Let's get better for you by having you do this instead,
hmm
right?
So to get back to Cassandra's question, I'm envisioning two kids in the same room. One starts getting upset. The other one starts yelling because doesn't like when the other one does this. Now she's got two dysregulated kids. What do you recommend here? What do you recommend?
Okay, so in that moment right there, what I would do, because there's the original dysregulated child, which oftentimes they end up getting more of the attention, right?
Yes.
And which is what we don't want, right? So, and then you get the other child. First of all, if you know that there's a tendency for that, if you can get in there early before the other kid starts to yell, and even say to them, hey, did you need to, oh, this one here is very upset. Did you need to grab your headphones so that you don't hear that? Or did you need to kind of step out so that you're not sucked into that vortex, that energy right there,
Mhm.
right? And so if you can get ahead of it, that's always my be proactive about getting ahead of it.
Yeah.
But if they're already there, you didn't get a chance to get ahead of it, then now you just start to send them toward their whatever their coping skills is. And then once you get them moved, and sometimes you want to even guide them, let's get you away from this because this really upsetting to you, right? And
Mhm.
then you're doing it not in an upset way, but let's get you, oh no, you're getting upset, let's get you away from this so
Mhm.
that you're no longer getting upset. And then once you have them clear and in their coping skill, then you can address the other child
Yeah.
and say, hey, what happened there? And there are a list of ways to check in with your child, because oftentimes when you're getting a big emotional reaction from a child, then there's some kind of sensory attack, some kind of sensory disruption, or they've already been overwhelmed sensory wise all day long, kind of keeping it together because they have to, maybe at school,
Yep.
and then they just kind of fall apart when they get home.
Yep.
But there's typically something behind the behavior, like
Yeah.
behaviors speak.
Yeah. One more thing I'm going to just throw in there too. I love all that. So hopefully all you guys watching right now, if that like resonated with you, what stood out, put it in the comments, let us know. But one more thing that this kind of again kind of reminded me of another discussion I was having with a client at my private practice, where one of the kids has very severe ADHD and becomes aggressive to the point where it doesn't matter who's in his way, he will hit, scratch, whatever. Sister has high anxiety, but whenever he is triggered, she gets in alert mode, like fight, flight, or freeze mode, because like either she's gotten hurt by him or it's embarrassing because it happens at school and she's just like, oh my gosh, and she doesn't want any of that to happen. And of course she cares for him, but like it's also impacting her. And
Right.
so she's having this like, this reaction. And we were having this discussion with her parents, like just the two of us, three of us, without him present, the little kid. And we were just saying, we were explaining to her because she was old enough to understand, like, when I need to talk with him about what's happening, what I need you to do, what might better serve you is to go here into your room. And we were kind of going through the menu of coping strategies, but we also threw in like a signal that dad could show her to say, hey, this is what's going to happen right now. Because she also kind of got upset at dad for doing these, like kind of working with him, because A, it's more attention for him, but B, she feels like she wants to help him because it's like it happens all the time. So like she's got these competing
Mhm.
emotions about this recurring thing, but he was like, no, no, honey, it's okay. Like I need to do this. I need to get better at this, and you can help once he's calm. But in the moment, all it does is serve to make you more upset. So let's figure out like a signal that says, hey, I'm getting ready to kind of talk to him, but what I need from you is this, and let's come up with some strategies for you in the moment so that way you can detach and I could have that time, you know?
Right. And now also very important for him to be able to express that, because she does get anxious,
Yes.
that actually that the brother may take in that energy too. So
Yes.
understanding emotion soaking can be very helpful in also being able to direct the other children.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Yeah.
if you're feeling anxious and upset, if you really hate to see your brothers, and not a blame thing, we hate to
Mhm.
see them kind of spiral off, and you feel yourself getting upset when they're upset, it's better for you to walk away. It's better for you to go into a different space, because then you guys don't feed off of that energy.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
very
love it.
important.
I
Mhm.
love it. Okay, so we're just about at time. Cassie, hope that helped you with kind of thinking through that. Thank you for adding to the discussion. Always love the
Yes.
interactive portion. Thank you. I also do want to invite any of my past detectives who have taken the course. Remember, Lafaya comes in there 4 times a year. She like comes in and does even more intensive teaching of her Lafaya way. I'm going to actually throw that up here. So for folks, really like psyched about this and love what she has just shared, you need to go follow her on Instagram at Lafaya_way. Sign up on her for her emails. Go to her website, lafayaway.com. It's scrolling there. She is just amazing, and that's why I love her. Like I keep bringing her back. I mean, she just has she's got so many years of experience, guys, and it can feel really isolating and defeating in the moment when it's just like, gosh, this is happening again. But you've gotta actually like practice. You've got to practice this. This is like skills that don't happen overnight, right? And you've got to show yourself grace. Okay. It sounds super easy. You might be jazzed after you watch this. You're like, oh yeah, I'm going to do this. And then boom, happens. The opportunity's there. And then you might like forget. Okay. Guess what? Guess what? When you reflect on it, you're like, oh, I forgot what Lafaya said in that script. That was amazing. I need to do that. Well, then practice that in your head. Practice that. Give yourself grace. It's going to happen again, believe me. You're going to
Mhm.
have more opportunities to practice, but it's like a muscle. You've got to just keep doing it, and then, like paying attention to how that feels. How do your kids react? And every time you do it, it's going to get easier.
Mhm. And guys, remember, guilt does not serve you at all. Once you feel guilty about a thing, just remember somebody has to be to blame. And it either has to be you or your child, which only breeds resentment towards self or your child, which neither is helpful to the situation.
Hmm.
So when she says grace, give yourself grace for that reason, because it's far more productive for you to say, oh, I don't like that I had this response instead of that response. Next time, I'll try to do a piece of this, and keep giving yourself that next time until next time is with you during that time.
Yes. Yes,
Yes.
yes. Oh my goodness. So please, guys, show Lafaya some love. Like, say, put in comments there how you're gonna like after you watch this, especially if you're catching this on replay. I want you to go ahead as you're watching on replay, put hashtag replay, put any questions, comments, observations, because me and Lafaya, we're gonna come back and like look at these things because I meet with her pretty regularly. We have like a lot of stuff that we're working on. So we'll like review some of those things. We can go back in, answer any questions, but we want to be here to support you in this process. It's a growth.
Yes.
And again, Lafaya does. Oh, can you talk about your new program, please, while we're here?
Oh,
Please.
okay. Well, I have my Parents Empowering Parents program.
Yes.
It's a 12 week. We meet for 1 hour each week, but you will learn tangible skills that will give you results. You will hate me in the first 2 weeks because there's so much information that I'm giving to you that's new. It feels like you should know it already, but it's new. You're like, why have I not thought of it this way? By the time we get to about that 6th week is when parents stop hating me, and they're like, oh my goodness, okay, I get it, like I'm getting it, and they're actually able to apply and sing differences with their kids in the home.
Yep.
So come join us, because absolutely excited about the program, because I see how it's changing the lives of parents.
Yeah. And when is it? Is it enrolling now? Is it start? Like, where are we in that?
Okay, so we just finished up enrollment for my most recent two classes, and we'll be starting up another in the next 4 weeks or so. So
Hmm.
so just visit the website, or
Yep.
reach out to me, contact me, and I'll get the information to you for when we'll meet next.
And then plus those of you who are in the parenting discussion group, you're on my email list. So I did send out information about it last week, Thursday, with the links for registration. But as you know, Lafayette and I, we've got lots of stuff cooking. So, she'll be coming on and, periodically letting us know whenever she enrolls another group. And then I'll shoot that out through the newsletter because I don't want you guys to miss it. Another opportunity, though, as I was saying, for my Teach Me ADHD alumni, as well as currently enrolled families, like Lafaya comes into that community and she's literally teaching her 4-step process just for our families. So if you took the class before and you're not in the community now, hit me up, send me an email, say I got to get in because I need this this community, but then I also need this teaching from Lafaya, so we can do it on that end too. So again, I'm just really excited to have you, Lafaya, as always. What great information. Let's put it to work, and let's, put a hashtag in here like, hey, this is how it's going. I tried it. Oh my gosh, it actually did this. We want to hear that. We want to hear that. And that way your wins, no matter how small or big, can be inspiring to the other parents who watch this video for the first time, maybe 6 months from now or a year from now. And they're like, it actually works. Like there are parents here that are saying it's kind of working. So maybe I can do it too. Right.
Yeah.
So that's what this community is all about.
Yes.
All right. So a big thank you to Lafaya. And then also, guys, next week I have Sarah Rack and Rachel Gilgoff. We're going to be talking about the power of relationships to help protect children. Really interesting conversation that we're going to have. So please tune in. That one is going to be pre-recorded. But if you're watching it when it premieres and you have questions, comments, as always, I'm always monitoring that. So don't be shy. Leave comments, okay? And then if you have any questions for future topics, guests that you want me to bring on, please email me directly at drnerissa@letstalkkidshealth.org. Follow me on all my various social media platforms. And as you know, you can always post in this group, because then I can just, message me and stuff, and then we can chat. All right. And then just one more plug is my book club for this month. We're doing Finding Eco Happiness by Sandy Schwartz. The book is available for pre-order now, and it ships starting tomorrow. And for those of you who read along the one by Dr. Victoria Dunkley last month, Resetting Your Child's Brain and Electronic Screen Syndrome. Remember, I mentioned that if you're going to commit to electronic fast, this book you want to read, because remember, she said you can't just take away electronics and expect your kid to get bored and figure it out. No, that's why you fail. So you've got to build in connection time with your child as well as other activities. And it's getting nice now, especially here in Indiana, where you could get outside. So this book is all about finding eco happiness, mental wellness for kids and families. So you want to check out that book, read along with us. She's going to come in and do an author chat at the end of the month. Okay. All right. So that is it now. Amazing show, amazing episode. Thank you for those who stayed on and are watching. Please leave comments. I'm serious. I love it. And we will answer any other questions if you use #replay. All right. Well, that's it for now, guys. And we'll see you all next week. Thanks again for watching.